What if the silence around your life is not proof that you have been forgotten, but evidence that God has been preparing something people cannot ignore? What if the rejection that broke your heart was not the end of your story, but the place where God began separating you from everything that could never carry you into your future? Listen to me carefully. You have spent enough nights wondering why people who promised to stand beside you suddenly disappeared. You have watched people misunderstand your intentions, question your character, twist your words, and walk away as though your existence meant nothing. But there is something you must understand before you allow their opinions to become your identity. People can overlook you, but they cannot cancel what God has decided to do through your life. There was a season when you thought being unseen meant being insignificant. You looked around and saw other people receiving opportunities, recognition, applause, invitations, and doors that seemed to open effortlessly for them. Meanwhile, you were fighting battles nobody knew about. You were carrying disappointment behind a normal face. You were smiling while privately asking God, how long? You wondered whether your time had passed before it ever arrived. You wondered whether your name would always remain unknown. But God was not measuring your future by the attention you were receiving in that season. God was developing depth where people were looking for appearance. God was strengthening your character while others were chasing recognition. God was teaching you how to stand when nobody was clapping, because someday you would need to stand when everybody was watching. Do not despise the years when nobody noticed you. Those years revealed something that applause never could. They showed you who you were when there was no audience. They exposed whether you could continue when there was no reward, whether you could remain faithful when there was no immediate evidence, whether you could keep moving when the people you trusted decided to leave. You thought you were being buried, but perhaps you were being planted. You thought your story was disappearing, but God was writing chapters you could not yet read. A seed does not look impressive underground. Nobody applauds it. Nobody photographs it. Nobody celebrates what is happening beneath the surface. Yet something is happening. Roots are forming. Strength is developing. And when the appointed season arrives, what was hidden begins to rise where everyone can see it. I know you remember the people who laughed at you. I know you remember the ones who underestimated you. I know there are conversations you wish you had never heard and accusations you never deserved. There are moments when someone's betrayal made you question your own heart. You gave loyalty and received suspicion. You offered kindness and received disrespect. You protected people who later exposed you. You defended people who later blamed you. You remained silent because you did not want to destroy them with the truth you knew. And perhaps that silence made them believe you were weak. But silence is not always weakness. Sometimes silence is restraint. Sometimes God allows you to remain quiet because He does not need you to win an argument. He intends to reveal the truth through your life. The person who rejected you may one day hear your name in a room where they never expected it. The person who dismissed your potential may eventually witness the very thing they said would never happen. The people who assumed you would remain in the same place may discover that you have become someone they no longer recognize. But be careful here. Your goal is not revenge. Do not build your future around the fantasy of making your enemies jealous. That is still allowing them to control you. Your assignment is larger than proving someone wrong. Your purpose is not to embarrass the people who wounded you. Your purpose is to become everything God has called you to become, whether they ever apologize or not. There is a difference between becoming famous and becoming significant. Fame can make people know your face. Significance makes your life mean something after the attention disappears. You do not need millions of people merely repeating your name. You need your life to carry such truth, courage, discipline, wisdom, compassion, and purpose that your existence becomes evidence of what God can do with someone who refuses to surrender to despair. If God allows your name to travel farther than you imagined, let it travel because your life carries something valuable. Let people encounter courage when they encounter you. Let them encounter integrity. Let them see what perseverance looks like after betrayal. Let them discover that a person can be wounded without becoming cruel, rejected without becoming bitter, and misunderstood without abandoning their purpose. You have been asking God for a bigger platform, but perhaps God has been asking you for a stronger foundation. You want the world to hear your voice, but can your character survive being heard? You want greater influence, but can you carry influence without becoming addicted to approval? You want people to recognize your name, but can you remain humble when recognition finally comes? These are not small questions. A larger life does not simply require a larger opportunity. It requires a larger capacity. If God gives you visibility before you have developed stability, visibility can magnify weaknesses that were previously hidden. So do not become frustrated with the preparation. The preparation is protecting you from becoming the very person you once needed protection from. There may come a day when the same people who ignored your messages will want your attention. The same people who treated your dreams as foolish may suddenly become curious about your journey. Same people who could not see anything valuable in you may suddenly act as though they always believed in you. When that day comes, remember who you became when nobody believed. Do not become arrogant because they changed their opinion. Do not become bitter because they arrived late. Let your maturity speak louder than your memory of their disrespect. You do not have to punish them. You do not have to perform for them. You do not have to reopen every door simply because you finally have the power to do so. God can teach you how to forgive without teaching you to return to every environment that wounded you. And I want you to hear this because some of you have mistaken isolation for abandonment. You are looking at the empty chair beside you and thinking, nobody is coming. You are seeing friendships disappear and assuming your future is disappearing with them. But there are seasons when God removes noise so you can hear direction. There are seasons when certain relationships become uncomfortable because the person you are becoming can no longer fit inside the identity those relationships assign to you. Not everyone who leaves is your enemy. Not everyone who stays is your friend. Sometimes separation is painful precisely because it is necessary. You have been trained by disappointment to expect the worst. When something good begins to happen, you immediately wonder how it will go wrong. When someone compliments you, you question their motive. When a door opens, you expect it to close. When an opportunity appears, you convince yourself that you are not ready. This is what prolonged rejection can do to a person. It can make yesterday's pain speak louder than tomorrow's possibility. But you cannot keep allowing old wounds to make decisions about new seasons. What happened to you is part of your history. but it does not have to become the architect of your future. God sees what people cannot see. People see the current version of you. God sees the possibilities hidden inside you. People calculate your worth from your past mistakes. God can use even the lessons born from those mistakes to shape your wisdom. People remember the moment you fell. God sees whether you got back up with greater understanding. People may define you by one chapter because they do not have access to the rest of the book. But your story is not finished because someone formed an opinion too early. There is a reason your heart has survived things you once thought would destroy you. There is a reason you are still here after nights when you felt completely exhausted. There is a reason you can still dream after disappointment tried to kill your expectation. Do not overlook that. Your survival is not meaningless. Every difficult season taught you something. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every rejection forced you to discover strengths you did not know you possessed. Every lonely moment taught you how to stand without constantly needing someone else to validate you. Pain did not have to become your identity, but it can become part of your preparation. So stop announcing to yourself that you are behind. Behind whom? According to whose clock? You have been comparing your private struggle to somebody else's public appearance. You see their celebration, but not their preparation. You see their results, but not their sacrifices. You see the door they entered, but not the doors they were forced to walk away from. Your journey has its own timing. God does not need to reproduce somebody else's path to bring you into your purpose. And when your name begins traveling farther than you expected, remember the person who used to sit alone, wondering whether anyone would ever notice. Remember the nights when you had no evidence except faith. Remember how much courage it took to continue without applause. Remember that your greatest victory was not the moment people finally recognized you. Your greatest victory was the moment you decided you would continue, even if they never did. Maybe the world will know your name. Maybe your work will reach places you have never seen. Maybe your voice will encourage people you will never personally meet. Maybe your story will become the reason someone else refuses to give up. But even if the scale of your influence becomes enormous, never confuse recognition with purpose. Your name is not the source of your worth. Your popularity is not the measurement of your value. Your numbers cannot tell you who you are. God alone knows the full weight of the life He has placed within you. There will be people who misunderstand the new you because they only knew the old you. Let them misunderstand. There will be people who call your boundaries pride because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. Let them talk. There will be people who say you have changed because you stopped accepting what once broke you. Yes, you have changed. You were supposed to change. Growth was never supposed to leave you identical to the person who entered the trial. You are not going back to beg for a seat at tables that once rejected you. You are not going back to explain your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You are not going to spend the rest of your life standing before closed doors asking why they would not open. Some doors closed because God knew what was behind them. Some relationships ended because continuing them would have cost you more than leaving them. Some opportunities disappeared because they were not large enough for where you were going. Lift your head. Not because everything is already solved, but because your future does not belong to the people who wounded you. Your future belongs in the hands of God. You may not know how the next chapter will unfold. You may not know where the next opportunity will come from. You may not know who will recognize your work or when your circumstances will change. But you can know this. Your present visibility does not determine your ultimate significance. So keep building when nobody is watching. Keep learning when nobody is praising you. Keep becoming disciplined when nobody is rewarding you. Keep your heart clean when bitterness would be easier. Keep your standards when desperation tells you to compromise. Keep your faith when circumstances demand panic. Keep going, not because you are guaranteed an easy road, but because surrendering your purpose to temporary pain would be too expensive. One day, people may know your name. But when that day comes, let them discover that behind the name was a person who endured without becoming cruel, struggled without becoming hopeless, succeeded without becoming arrogant, and was wounded without becoming what wounded them. Let them see that God can take a life that seemed overlooked and give it meaning far beyond human expectations. And if nobody recognizes your name tomorrow, do not stop. If the world does not applaud next week, do not stop. If another door closes, do not stop. If someone laughs again, do not stop. Your assignment was never dependent on their approval. It's the same God who saw you when you were invisible can guide you when you become visible. It's the same God who sustained you in obscurity can teach you how to walk responsibly in influence. So still more inside you, more courage, more wisdom, more discipline, more compassion, more strength, more work that has not yet been completed. Do not let the chapter you are living through convince you that the story has reached its final page. You are still becoming. You are still learning. You are still being shaped. And the people who thought they had already figured you out may eventually discover that they were looking at a version of you that no longer exists. Walk forward with humility, but walk forward without apology for becoming stronger. Carry your scars without worshiping your pain. Remember your past without living inside it. Forgive without returning to captivity. Dream without needing permission. Build without demanding applause. Trust God when the path is unclear. And when your moment arrives, when your work reaches farther than you imagined, when people begin asking where you came from and how you endured, let your answer be written into the evidence of your life. You were not carried by human approval. You were sustained by God. Let them know the name if God allows the name to be known. Let them see the work if God opens the door for the work to be seen. Let them hear the story if God gives you the platform to tell it. But never forget the deepest truth. The world knowing your name is not the miracle. Becoming the person God intended you to become is the miracle. And if your name reaches millions, but your character remains empty, you have gained attention and lost the purpose. But if your life becomes a source of courage, wisdom, hope, discipline, and truth, then your existence will speak even when you are silent. So rise from the place where rejection left you. Leave behind the identity built from other people's opinions. Stop rehearsing the accusations of people who never understood your heart. Stop asking whether you are worthy of the future simply because someone from your past failed to recognize your value. God saw you before they did. God knew you before they applauded you. God was present when they abandoned you. And God can lead you into places where the limitations others placed upon you no longer have authority. The world may know your name someday, but let your life be bigger than your name. Let your character be stronger than your reputation. Let your purpose be deeper than your popularity. Let your faith be steadier than the applause. And when the noise becomes loud, remember the silence where you were built. Remember the lonely road. Remember the unanswered questions. Remember the tears nobody witnessed. Remember the nights you almost gave up and chose to continue. Because perhaps the person who was once ignored is not being forgotten. Perhaps that person is being prepared. And perhaps the reason you cannot yet see how far your life can go is because God is still building what the world will one day recognize. Do not rush the unveiling. Become ready for it. There is another truth you need to understand. Recognition often arrives after resistance. The world rarely pays attention to what has not yet proven itself through pressure. That is why your difficult season has felt so personal. You were not simply fighting circumstances. You were fighting the temptation to believe that your circumstances were a prophecy. You saw rejection and thought, this is what my life will always look like. You saw betrayal and thought, I will never trust again. You saw other people advance while you remained in the same place and concluded, maybe I was never meant for more. But circumstances are not qualified to tell you what God has planned for you. You have been living with evidence from yesterday, while God is dealing with possibilities in tomorrow. That is why you feel tension inside yourself. One part of you remembers every disappointment, while another part still refuses to stop believing. One part says, be realistic, while something deeper says, keep moving. One part wants to protect you from being hurt again, while another part knows that hiding forever is not healing. You cannot build a new life while constantly consulting the wounds of your old one. There are people who only recognize value after the world recognizes it first. They could stand beside a diamond and call it ordinary because they do not understand what they are looking at. That does not make the diamond worthless. It reveals the limitation of the observer. Stop measuring your potential by the vision of people who could only understand the version of you that served their comfort. Some people loved you as long as you remained predictable. When you began changing, they called you difficult. When you became disciplined, they called you distant. When you stopped explaining yourself, they called you arrogant. When you began protecting your peace, they accused you of becoming selfish. But growth often disturbs people who benefited from your insecurity. Let that sentence settle into your spirit. You cannot remain small simply because somebody became comfortable with your smallness. You cannot keep apologizing for developing confidence. You cannot continue lowering your standards so people who refuse to grow will feel comfortable standing beside you. There is a point where humility stops being humility and becomes self-abandonment. God did not give you a life so that you could spend it constantly shrinking to fit inside somebody else's expectations. Maybe the people around you have already decided what you can become. Maybe they remember the mistakes you made years ago and keep bringing them into every conversation. Maybe they have reduced you to one failure, one bad decision, one season of weakness. But God does not need their permission to rewrite the direction of your life. You are not required to remain the person you were when you made your worst mistake. You can learn, you can mature, you can rebuild, you can become more disciplined than you were before. You can walk differently because you understand things now that you did not understand then. And listen carefully, your past does not become powerful because somebody keeps mentioning it. A closed chapter remains closed unless you keep reopening it. Stop allowing people to drag you backward emotionally. You do not have to defend yourself every time someone misunderstands you. You do not have to answer every accusation. You do not have to prove that you were innocent to people who have already chosen their version of the story. There are battles that God will settle without requiring you to destroy your peace. Your future requires concentration. You cannot build something extraordinary while spending every day monitoring who is talking about you. You cannot create meaningful work while obsessing over people who refuse to understand it. You cannot hear direction clearly while constantly listening to criticism from people who have no responsibility for your destiny. At some point, you have to turn down the noise and return to the work. Work when nobody celebrates you. Study when nobody believes you need to. Improve when nobody notices the difference. Pray when the answer seems delayed. Continue when your emotions tell you to quit. There is a version of you that can only be developed through consistency. Motivation may get you moving, but discipline determines whether you keep moving when the emotional excitement disappears. If you want your name to carry weight, then your habits must become stronger than your moods. You cannot ask God for extraordinary influence while refusing ordinary discipline. Perhaps your greatest enemy is not the person who betrayed you. Perhaps it is the voice inside you that now repeats their judgment. They told you that you were not enough, and eventually you began saying it to yourself. They told you that your dream was unrealistic, and you began shrinking it. They treated you as though your presence did not matter, and you started behaving as though you needed permission to exist. This is where the battle becomes deeper. You can physically leave a toxic environment while carrying its voice inside your mind. But that voice does not have to remain. You can challenge it. You can replace it with truth. You can stop agreeing with every negative conclusion your pain produces. You can tell yourself, I made mistakes, but I am not a mistake. I was rejected, but rejection does not define my value. I was betrayed, but betrayal does not determine my future. I was overlooked, but being overlooked does not mean I am without purpose. And then you must live accordingly, not tomorrow. Now, there is something powerful about becoming comfortable with being misunderstood. When you stop needing everyone to understand you, you become much harder to manipulate. You no longer have to perform for acceptance. You can make decisions based on conviction rather than applause. You can walk away from environments that require you to betray yourself simply to belong. You can say no without spending 3 days explaining why. You can choose silence without feeling guilty. You can choose distance without hatred. That is freedom. And freedom changes the way you carry yourself. You stop chasing people who have already shown you their limits. You stop begging for conversations that should have happened naturally. You stop trying to convince someone to value what they repeatedly treated carelessly. You stop confusing familiarity with loyalty. You begin asking a different question. Does this relationship support the person I am becoming? Or does it keep pulling me toward the person I fought so hard to outgrow? That question will change your life, because not every familiar place is a safe place. Not every old friend belongs in every new chapter. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Not every invitation deserves your yes. And not every person who returns deserves access to the person you became while they were gone. God can give you discernment without giving you hatred. That matters. You do not need to become cold to become wise. You do not need to distrust everyone because one person betrayed you. You do not need to punish innocent people for wounds they did not cause. Heal deeply enough that you can recognize danger without becoming afraid of love. Recognize manipulation without becoming suspicious of kindness. And recognize rejection without believing that everyone will reject you. There is a future where you walk into a room without wondering whether you belong there. There is a future where your work speaks before you do. There is a future where opportunities come because of the value you have built rather than the people you begged to notice you. There is a future where you no longer explain your dreams because your results explain them for you. But that future cannot be built by the version of you that is addicted to yesterday. You have to release the need for an apology before you allow yourself to move forward. Some people may never admit what they did. Some may never understand how deeply they hurt you. Some may continue believing a false story about you until the end of their lives. If your healing depends on their confession, you have handed them control over your freedom. Take it back. You do not need their apology to obey God. You do not need their approval to become disciplined. You do not need their recognition to begin. You do not need their invitation to build something meaningful. And you certainly do not need their permission to become who you were meant to become. There is a strange power in being underestimated. It gives you room to develop without interference. While people are busy deciding you cannot do something, you can be quietly learning how to do it. While they are discussing your failures, you can be correcting them. While they are predicting your downfall, you can be preparing your rise. While they are watching the old version of you, you can become someone entirely different. Do not announce every move. Do not explain every plan. Do not reveal every dream to people who have demonstrated that they cannot handle your vulnerability. Sometimes the most powerful response is progress that requires no announcement. Let your consistency become your explanation. Let your maturity become your defense. Let your character become your evidence. Let God deal with what you cannot control. And when the opportunity finally arrives, do not sabotage it by carrying the insecurity of the person you used to be. You prayed for the door, but are you prepared to walk through it without asking whether you deserve to be there? You ask God for influence, but are you prepared to remain grounded when strangers begin praising you? You ask for financial increase, but are you prepared to manage it responsibly? You ask for a larger audience, but are you prepared for criticism from people who know nothing about your journey? The blessing will test what the struggle built. That's why preparation matters. Anyone can dream about being known. Few people prepare for the responsibility of being known. Anyone can desire attention. Few people prepare their character for scrutiny. Anyone can ask for success. Few people develop the discipline necessary to carry it without destroying themselves. So build privately, strengthen privately, correct privately, pray privately, and let God decide when the private work becomes public evidence. You may not realize it, but every day you continue, despite disappointment, you are becoming harder to destroy. Every time you choose discipline instead of impulse, you are building authority over yourself. Every time you refuse bitterness, you are proving that your pain does not own you. Every time you choose integrity when dishonesty would be easier, you are adding weight to your character. That weight matters, because one day, if your name becomes known, people will not only hear your words, they will study your life. They will look for contradictions They will search for weaknesses. They will question your motives. They will criticize what they do not understand. And you will need something deeper than charisma to survive that environment. You will need character. You will need humility. You will need wisdom. You will need God. So do not rush toward the spotlight while neglecting the foundation. If God is keeping you hidden for a season, use the season. If there is still work to do inside you, do it. If there are habits that must change, change them. If there are wounds that must be healed, face them. If there are people you must release, release them without turning the separation into hatred. The world does not need another person desperate to be seen. The world needs people whose lives are worth seeing. Become that person. And when your name travels farther than your neighborhood, farther than your city, farther than the people who once knew you, do not let recognition make you forget the road that formed you. Remember the person who cried quietly. Remember the person who had to start again. Remember the person who had no audience and still kept going. Remember the person who was rejected and still chose integrity. That person is part of your strength. You do not need to erase the past to move beyond it. You need to understand it. Your betrayal taught you discernment. Your isolation taught you independence. Your rejection taught you resilience. Your failures taught you humility. Your waiting taught you patience. Your unanswered questions taught you how to keep walking without complete certainty. None of those lessons were wasted. And now you are standing at the edge of something different. Not because everything is suddenly easy. Not because everyone suddenly loves you. Not because every problem disappeared. But because you are no longer the same person who entered the storm, you have learned how to stand. You have learned how to think. You have learned how to walk away. You have learned how to begin again. You have learned that God can sustain you even when human support disappears. That knowledge is worth more than applause. So if your name becomes known, let it be known for something that cannot be purchased. Let people associate your name with courage when circumstances become difficult. Let them associate it with integrity when compromise becomes profitable. Let them associate it with compassion when bitterness would be easier. Let them associate it with discipline when distraction is everywhere. Let them associate it with someone who did not allow rejection to become an excuse for becoming cruel. And if the world never knows your name in the way you imagined, your life can still matter profoundly. Because purpose is not measured only by visibility. Sometimes the most important life is not the loudest life. Sometimes the greatest influence happens in rooms where there are no cameras, no followers, no applause, and no public recognition. So do not worship the spotlight, worship God. Do not chase a name, build a life. Do not chase revenge, build character. Do not chase approval, build value. Do not chase tension, build substance. And if God chooses to make your name known, let the visibility become a responsibility rather than an idol. Because there may come a day when someone who is currently sitting in the same darkness you once knew hears your story and thinks, if that person survived, maybe I can survive too. That is when your pain becomes useful. That is when your scars become testimony. That is when your survival becomes service. That is when the years nobody understood begin to make sense. So keep walking. Not for the people who doubted you. Not for the people who betrayed you. Not for the people who will someday wish they had treated you differently. Walk because God gave you another day. Build because there's still something inside you that deserves to be developed. Grow, because yesterday's version of you is not the final version. And if the world eventually learns your name, let them discover something greater than a famous person. Let them discover a life that was tested and did not collapse. A life that was wounded and did not become wicked. A life that was rejected and did not become desperate. A life that was isolated and did not become empty. A life that was misunderstood and did not abandon truth. A life that kept moving when nobody was watching. And when people finally ask, how did you make it this far? Do not give all the credit to your strength, your intelligence, your connections, or your circumstances. Remember the one who saw you when nobody else did. Remember God. Because the world may eventually know your name, but God knew your name before the world ever heard it. And that is why you do not have to chase recognition. You only have to become ready for whatever God decides to place in your hands. Listen to me with your whole heart, because what I am about to tell you is not ordinary wisdom. It is the kind of truth that shakes a soul awake. There comes a moment in every person's life when God begins to pull people away from you. People you trusted, people you cherished, people you thought would walk with you forever. And it feels confusing, it feels painful, it feels unfair. But hear me, when God removes a person from your life, it is never loss, it is divine protection. God clears out fake love so real love can finally find you. Fake love cannot survive in the atmosphere God is preparing you for. Fake love cannot enter the future that belongs to you. Fake love cannot stand in the presence of the blessings that are coming. So when separation happens, do not panic, do not plead, do not chase. God is working. You see, many people say they want real love, but they don't understand what real love requires. Real love requires truth. Real love requires loyalty. Real love requires a heart aligned with God, not a heart that only visits God when convenient. Fake love takes from you, drains you, uses you, pretends with you. Real love builds you, strengthens you, encourages you, and elevates you toward the destiny God designed. And God knows that if He doesn't clear your path, fake love will take up the space where your blessing was meant to stand. So God, in His mercy, begins to separate you. He begins to create distance. He begins to expose intentions that were once hidden. And even though this exposure hurts, it also heals. Because once God reveals the truth, you are no longer bound by illusions. Many of you listening right now feel the sting of abandonment. You feel the weight of a heart that gave too much. You feel the ache of being misunderstood, unappreciated, overlooked. But God allowed that experience not to break you, but to prepare you. God allowed it so you would learn the difference between those who speak love and those who live love. There is a world of difference between someone who says, I care about you, and someone who shows it through consistency, respect, and integrity. God is not removing people because you are unworthy. God is removing people because you are growing. And not everyone can grow with you. There are people who only loved the weaker version of you. They loved you when you were small enough to control, desperate enough to depend on them, insecure enough to tolerate their disrespect. But the moment God began strengthening your identity, The moment you began discovering your worth, the moment you started walking with confidence, their love shifted. Not because you changed for the worse, but because you changed for the better. Fake love cannot celebrate your growth. Fake love cannot endure your elevation. Fake love becomes uncomfortable when it cannot manipulate you. This is why God removes it. God is not trying to harm you. God is protecting your soul from people who never intended to love you in truth. Hear this clearly. When someone walks away from your life, let them go. When someone chooses others over you, let them go. When someone stops appreciating you, let them go. You do not need to cling to what God is cleansing. You do not need to chase what God is releasing. You do not need to grieve over what God is replacing. God has seen conversations you did not hear. God has witnessed intentions you did not see. God has heard prayers you did not know people prayed against you. God has watched the hidden actions people took behind your back. And when God removes someone from your life, it is because their presence was blocking something greater. Some of you keep asking, why did they leave? Why did they change? Why did they betray me? But the real question is this: why are you still trying to hold on to something God already delivered you from? If God closed a door, it is because what was behind it was contaminating your spirit. If God silenced a relationship, it is because that relationship was polluting your peace. If God exposed a person's true heart, it is because their intentions were never aligned with God's purpose for your future. God clears out fake love so your heart can become a worthy home for the love He is sending. And oh, when God sends real love, your soul will know. Real love does not confuse you. Real love does not exhaust you. Real love does not tear you apart internally. Real love does not make you beg for basic respect. Real love does not dim your flame. Real love does not punish your sensitivity. Real love does not weaponize your past. Real love lifts you. Real love speaks life into you. Real love protects your dignity. Real love gives you peace instead of anxiety. Real love helps you grow closer to God, not further away. Real love stands firm in storms. Real love nurtures your purpose. Real love sees your value without you having to prove it every day. But here is the truth you must accept. Real love cannot enter a heart still entangled with counterfeits. God cannot pour into hands still clutching counterfeits. God cannot bring blessings into a life still entertaining what weakens the soul. This is why God removes the fake before He delivers the real. Imagine this: you are holding on to a handful of dust, thinking it is treasure, and God is trying to give you gold. But you cannot receive the gold because you refuse to release the dust. This is what many people do with relationships. They cling to people who hurt them, tolerate disrespect, excuse manipulation, justify abandonment, and call it loyalty. But God calls it bondage, and God will break any bond that threatens your destiny. There are seasons when God isolates you, not because you are alone, but because He is detoxing your heart from the residue of people who never deserved you. God is not punishing you. God is purifying you. God is preparing you to recognize real love when it arrives. Because if you do not heal, you will sabotage what God sends. If you do not grow, you will misinterpret real love as boring and fake love as exciting. If you do not release the past will ruin your future. God clears your path so you can walk into your next season without the weight of what was. Sometimes God will let someone break your heart so He can break your attachment to what was never meant to stay. Sometimes God will allow someone to disappoint you so you can see their true character. Sometimes God will let conversations unfold that expose motives you ignored. This is not betrayal, this is revelation. God reveals, then God removes, then God replaces. But He cannot replace what you keep resurrecting. Do not go back to what God rescued you from. Do not crave what God is cleansing. Do not chase people who walked away. If they could walk away, they were never rooted in your soul. They were temporary lessons disguised as long-term possibilities. And listen closely. God knows when your heart is ready. You may think you are ready now, but God sees deeper than your emotions. God sees your wounds. God sees the hidden fears. God sees the insecurities you never speak about. God sees the habits that need correcting. God sees the patterns that need healing. And because God loves you, He will not send real love into an unhealed heart. Real love requires emotional maturity. Real love requires spiritual awareness. Real love requires internal wholeness. So before God sends love into your life, God strengthens the love within you. God grows your identity. God deepens your self-respect. God teaches you boundaries. God teaches you wisdom. God teaches you courage. Because real love is not for the weak. It is for those who have healed enough to handle it. You must understand this. God does not delay to hurt you. God delays to align you. God does not hold back love to punish you. God holds back love to protect you. Fake love will waste your years. Real love will multiply your years. Fake love will drain your soul. Real love will water your soul. Fake love will confuse your path. Real love will strengthen your path. So God clears the counterfeits before the blessing arrives, because God's love for you is too great to allow you to settle for less than what was divinely designed for your heart. There are moments when God will shake the very foundation of your relationships, not because He wants you to suffer, but because He wants you to see clearly. When God begins to reveal someone's true intentions, you must pay attention. Fake love often hides behind sweet words, emotional dependency, and temporary warmth. It looks real at first. It sounds real. It feels real. But beneath the surface, it carries an emptiness that can never sustain your spirit. Fake love promises loyalty, but disappears when responsibility appears. Fake love claims attachment, but flees when sacrifice is required. Fake love feeds on your energy, but never pours anything back into your soul. And when God sees that this kind of love is interfering with your destiny, He begins to disrupt it. This disruption may come in the form of sudden distance, unexpected misunderstandings, or emotional disconnection. You may think these moments are coincidences, but they are not. They are crafted by God to awaken your spirit. God allows the cracks in fake love to widen so you can see the truth behind the mask. God removes your comfort so you can recognize the counterfeit. You must understand that God is not removing people to leave you alone. God is removing people to make space for divine alignment. There is a difference between being rejected by people and being redirected by God. Rejection is the language of humans, but redirection is the handwriting of God. Too many people cling to relationships that feed their loneliness, but starve their spirit. And God says, I must break what is breaking you. God will take away the illusion that you thought was love, so you can understand what real love is meant to be. God will show you the difference between someone who loves your presence and someone who loves your soul. Someone who loves your presence enjoys what you offer, but someone who loves your soul invests in who you are becoming. Someone who loves your presence benefits from your energy, but someone who loves your soul protects your peace. Someone who loves your presence stays until the atmosphere changes, but someone who loves your soul stays because they are committed to your growth. But God cannot introduce this kind of person while your heart is still occupied with counterfeits. Many people ask God for a blessing, but refuse to release the burden that blocks it. They pray for real love while still entertaining fake love. They yearn for peace while still holding on to chaos. They desire clarity while still choosing confusion. They want someone who values them while still giving their energy to someone who takes them for granted. God does not respond to prayers wrapped in contradiction. God responds to hearts that are ready, and readiness requires release. Release is painful because the human heart becomes attached even to what wounds it. You can become accustomed to being undervalued. You can become used to being ignored. You can adapt to being disrespected. And this familiarity becomes a chain. But God does not want your heart to adapt to pain. God wants your heart to awaken and rise. So God begins removing everything that teaches your heart the wrong definition of love. God begins stripping away every influence that makes you settle for less. God begins tearing down every bond that weakens your identity. Fake love may have entered your life without your permission, but it cannot stay in your life without your cooperation. And when you finally release what God is removing, you open the door for what God is sending. Understand this deeply. God does not send real love into a heart that is still loyal to its wounds. The healing must come first. The transformation must come first. The internal cleansing must come first. Because if God sent love before healing, you would sabotage it. You would mistrust it. You would misinterpret it. You would project old pain onto new blessings. You would carry the habits of an old relationship into the purity of a God-ordained connection. And God, in His mercy, protects you from that. This is why God takes His time. This is why God delays. The delay is not denial. The delay is preparation. God is shaping you into someone who can discern the difference between emotional attraction and spiritual compatibility. Anyone can be attracted to your appearance, but only a soul aligned with God can be connected to your purpose. Emotional attraction fades when life becomes difficult, but spiritual compatibility deepens in the midst of struggle. Emotional attraction wants benefits, but spiritual compatibility wants growth. Emotional attraction seeks entertainment, but spiritual compatibility seeks meaning. God is clearing the fake so you can experience what it means to be loved in truth and depth. You may not realize it now, But God is preparing you for love that mirrors His grace, love that is patient, love that is sincere, love that is loyal, love that is steady, love that is comforting without controlling, love that is strong without being harsh, love that brings harmony instead of chaos. That kind of love cannot come from someone whose heart is full of insecurity, ego, and instability. That kind of love comes from someone whose spirit has also been touched and transformed by God. But for that person to enter your life, your heart must be aligned with the same spiritual frequency. Sometimes the people God removes are not evil. They are simply not ready. They are not aligned. They are not equipped. They cannot walk into the future God is giving you because their spirit is anchored in places God has already delivered you from. And if you try to drag them into the next season, their unresolved wounds would infect your blessing. Their unhealed past would drain your progress. Their spiritual immaturity would collide with the growth God has built within you. So God separates paths, not as punishment, but as protection. Sometimes God removes people whose intentions were never real. These people appeared at a time of your vulnerability. They fed on your kindness. They enjoyed your attention. They accepted your loyalty, but never provided loyalty in return. These people were never sent by God. They were distractions sent to slow your growth. But God, in His mercy, exposes them before they can damage your destiny. You may cry over their departure now, but one day you will thank God they left. Because had they stayed, you would have stayed small. And then there are times when God removes the person because He knows that their presence will prevent the arrival of the one who was truly chosen. Fake love blocks real love by taking up the space of possibility. Fake love drains the energy you need to connect with the right person. Fake love fills your mind with anxiety so you cannot hear God's guidance. Fake love keeps your heart entangled in emotional patterns that are beneath you. Fake love interrupts the flow of blessings meant for your future. So God cuts the cord. You may feel the sting of loss, but God sees the fullness of what is coming. You may feel like something has been taken away, but God knows something better is being prepared. When something leaves your life by God's hand, it is never subtraction, it is divine replacement. God never takes without intending to fill. God never clears without intending to plant. God never closes without intending to open. But the opening will only happen once your hands are empty, once your heart is surrendered, and once your spirit is aligned with God's will. There comes a turning point in your spiritual journey when God begins to show you the difference between the love you wanted and the love you needed. The love you wanted often came from your wounds, your desire for validation, your fear of being alone, your need for acceptance, your longing to feel understood. But the love you needed comes from a place God has prepared within you. This love is steady. This love is mature. This love is aligned with your purpose. And because God loves you more than you love your temporary desires, God removes the people who appeal to your wounds but threaten your destiny. Some people came into your life because your loneliness made you accessible. Some people came because your kindness made you open. Some came because your empathy made you vulnerable. But God sees deeper than your emotions. God sees the intentions and the spirits behind every connection. God sees who strengthens your soul and who weakens it. God sees who is genuinely meant to walk with you and who is only meant to pass through. And when God recognizes a person draining your spiritual energy, corrupting your inner peace, or diminishing your self-worth, He will not allow that person to remain. You may think you lost someone important, but God removed someone dangerous, not dangerous in appearance, dangerous in spiritual influence. God protects you from the kind of harm that does not bruise the skin, but scars the soul. And this is why some relationships end abruptly. This is why certain people distance themselves without warning. This is why certain bonds that felt strong suddenly collapse. It is not coincidence. It is intervention. It is God stepping in and saying, enough. You will not carry this burden into the future I have prepared. You must understand, God is more committed to your destiny than your feelings. God is more committed to your purpose than your temporary attachments. God is more committed to your growth than your desire to keep familiar people near. You see their presence, God sees their influence. You see their smile, God sees their intentions. You hear their words, God hears their thoughts. That is why God removes what you would have kept. That is why God breaks what you would have tried to repair. God knows that your heart, when overly attached, can deceive you into believing that unhealthy love is acceptable. So God, in His mercy, intervenes before your spirit becomes entangled in something that was never meant to stay. What you must realize is that God's removal is preparation. God does not clear fake love just to leave a void in your heart. No. God clears it because real love requires space, spiritual space, emotional space, mental space. God is preparing you to receive a love that reflects His wisdom. A love that does not crumble under pressure. A love that does not retreat at the first sign of adversity. A love that recognizes your worth without needing reminders. A love that stands before God and says, I will never betray what you have entrusted to me. That kind of love is rare, and that is why the preparation must be intense. This preparation begins with the refinement of your identity. God will teach you who you are before sending you someone who will honor who you are. God does not want you entering a relationship crippled by insecurity, shrinking yourself to be loved, apologizing for your existence, or fearing abandonment. No. God wants your heart strong. God wants you whole. God wants you confident in your worth. God wants you rooted in self-respect. God wants you so aligned with Him that no amount of sweet words can deceive you again. When God builds your identity, counterfeit love loses its power over you. Then God begins refining your discernment. Discernment is the spiritual ability to see beyond appearances and sense the truth behind actions. Discernment prevents you from falling for charm while ignoring character. Discernment keeps you away from people who look attractive but carry spiritual heaviness. Discernment helps you recognize intentions before they unfold. And when your discernment grows, you will not cling to fake love anymore. You will detect it instantly. You will feel the spiritual mismatch. You will sense the inconsistency. You will recognize the emotional instability. Discernment is the armor God builds in you to protect you from choosing wrong again. Next, God strengthens your emotional boundaries. God does not want you to lose yourself in love. God wants you to remain whole even when connected. Fake love thrives on your weakness, but real love honors your strength, and God wants you to embrace that strength. That means learning to say no even when it feels uncomfortable. That means recognizing when someone's presence is draining your peace. That means refusing to justify disrespect. That means valuing your heart enough to walk away when necessary. Boundaries are not walls. They are spiritual fences that protect what God has been cultivating in you. But perhaps the most transformative part of God's preparation is the way He teaches you to love yourself with the same mercy He gives. Many people sabotage real love because they do not know how to receive love. They reject sincerity because it feels unfamiliar. They push away loyalty because they are used to betrayal. They question kindness because they expect disappointment. God must break these internal patterns before He brings someone who loves you purely. God must teach you that you are worthy, not because of anything you have done, but because of who you are, a soul created with intention, a heart shaped with purpose, a spirit protected by God's hand. Only then will you be ready for the love that God is preparing for you. A love that nurtures your destiny, not distracts from it. A love that strengthens your relationship with God, not weakens it. A love that honors your emotions, not manipulates them. A love that brings peace into your life, not chaos. A love that sees the beauty of your heart and becomes a safe place for its expression. And when that love finally arrives, you will understand why God removed everything that came before it. You will understand why certain relationships had to end. You will understand why certain people had to walk away. You will understand why you had to cry, why you had to heal, why you had to grow, why you had to experience heartbreak. Those were not obstacles. They were preparations. They stripped away your illusions. They strengthened your spirit. They sharpened your discernment. They shaped your character, and they positioned you to recognize the blessing that is coming. When God sends real love, it will not compete with your calling. It will complement it. Real love will not silence your voice. It will amplify it. Real love will not weaken your peace. It will anchor it. Real love will not make you question your worth. It will confirm it. Real love will not confuse your path. It will walk beside you on it. This is the kind of love God wants for you. And this is the kind of love God prepares you for. There comes a moment in your spiritual growth when you finally awaken to the truth that not every loss was a defeat. Some losses were divine protection. Some heartbreaks were divine intervention. Some departures were the hand of God, saving you from a future you could not see. Because sometimes you pray for a blessing, but the person you are holding on to is the very obstacle blocking it. And God, in His mercy, will remove what you refuse to release. God will close doors you are too emotional to shut. God will expose the truth you are too hopeful to face. God will interrupt the wrong relationship so He can build the right one. But here is the deeper revelation. God does not only remove fake love, He removes the version of yourself that was willing to accept it. Fake love survives because a part of you still believes you must earn affection, prove your worth, beg for attention, or settle for inconsistency. God dismantles this mindset piece by piece. God destroys the insecurity that made you stay. God uproots the fear that made you depend on the wrong person. God breaks the emotional patterns that kept you returning to the familiar pain. You cannot step into real love with the same heart that tolerated fake love. So God reshapes you from the inside out. There is a sacred moment in your healing where you begin to feel something shift, not externally, but internally. You start recognizing that the peace you were trying to get from someone else was meant to be built with God first. You begin to realize that your sense of worth does not come from another person valuing you. It comes from knowing that God designed you with intention. You begin to see that the loneliness you feared is actually the spiritual space where God is rebuilding your identity. When God becomes your source, fake love loses its power. When God becomes your anchor, emotional manipulation cannot move you. When God becomes your foundation, temporary people cannot shake you. And when your heart reaches this level of alignment, something remarkable happens. God starts sending you people who match your growth, not your wounds. People whose spirits resonate with your purpose. People who are drawn to your authenticity rather than your vulnerability. People who see you not as an emotional convenience, but as a divine responsibility. These are the individuals God has prepared for your next chapter. People who love with intention, not curiosity. People who commit with clarity, not confusion. People who remain consistent without needing to be reminded. But you must be spiritually prepared for this kind of love. Because real love requires a different level of maturity. Real love requires communication without defensiveness. Real love requires vulnerability without fear. Real love requires patience without resentment. Real love requires trust without suspicion. These are qualities God strengthens within you while you are alone. The solitude you complain about is the training ground for the relationship you are praying for. And every moment spent in God's presence is cultivating the emotional intelligence, the spiritual depth, and the inner strength required to sustain the love God is preparing. This is why some seasons feel heavy. This is why some days feel empty. This is why some nights feel long. God is not abandoning you. God is positioning you. God is not punishing you. God is purifying you. God is not delaying your blessing. God is deepening your capacity to receive it. For real love is not fragile. Real love is fortified. And God must ensure that when He places this love in your hands, you will not mishandle it because of past wounds. You will not sabotage it because of old fears. You will not reject it because of unresolved trauma. God is making sure that your heart is not only healed, but prepared. And when the moment finally arrives, when God brings someone into your life who reflects the maturity you've built, the clarity you've gained, the peace you've learned, and the wisdom you've embraced, you will look back and realize that God never forgot you. You will see that every heartbreak was a lesson. Every disappointment was protection. Every separation was cleansing. Every lonely night was preparation. God was not stripping you. God was shaping you. God was not taking love away. God was making room for the love He planned for you long before you understood your own worth. Real love is not chaotic. Real love is not confusing. Real love is not unpredictable. Real love is not conditional. Real love is not something you have to beg for, plead for, or chase. Real love flows. Real love aligns. Real love strengthens. Real love brings calm to the soul. Real love mirrors the peace that God has already planted within you. And when this love enters your life, you will not question it. You will recognize it, because it will feel like the answer to every prayer, the healing for every wound, and the fulfillment of every promise. What God is preparing for you is not ordinary. It is not shallow. It is not temporary. It is not the type of love that comes and goes with emotional whim. It is a love rooted in purpose, a love infused with spiritual depth, a love that grows, evolves, and endures, a love that aligns with your calling, a love that supports your destiny, a love that brings harmony to your home, balance to your emotions, and reassurance to your spirit. This is the love God is getting ready to introduce. And when it comes, it will make every past disappointment irrelevant. You will not envy anyone else's story, because the chapter God writes for you will carry His unmistakable signature. You will not question why you had to wait so long, because the blessing God delivers will be worth every tear. You will not resent what you lost, because what God replaces it with will reveal the true meaning of abundance. God never withholds without purpose. God never delays without wisdom. God never clears without intention. Every removal was leading to alignment. Every ending was making room for a divine beginning. Every heartbreak was pushing you closer to the love God designed, not the love you settled for. So today, hear this with every fiber of your being. God is faithful. God is wise. God is relentless in His protection over your heart. Every person God removes from your life, every moment of loneliness, every heartbreak, every betrayal, it is all part of His divine orchestration to bring you the love you deserve. Fake love was never meant to stay, and God will never allow it to settle where real love is destined to dwell. What has been taken away is not loss, it is divine alignment. What has ended is not failure, it is preparation. And what is coming will not only fulfill your longing, it will elevate your soul, honor your worth, and strengthen your spirit beyond measure. Trust in God's timing. Trust in God's wisdom. Trust that every removal, every separation, every exposure of hidden intentions is for your ultimate good. Do not chase what God is clearing away. Do not cling to what God is replacing. Do not grieve what God is transforming. Instead, surrender, align, and prepare. Strengthen your heart. Guard your peace. Refine your spirit. Because when God delivers the love He has prepared, it will be unmistakable, undeniable, and unshakable. It will be the love you prayed for, the love you deserve, and the love that perfectly complements the life God has designed for you. Listen closely, because what I am about to tell you is not a soft whisper of comfort. It is a roar from the depths of faith itself. There are moments in life when you look around and it feels as though something has been stolen from you. your peace taken, your opportunities taken, your relationships, your confidence, your strength, your sense of self taken, and you wonder, where did it go? Who touched what belonged to me? Why does my heart feel emptied by forces I cannot even see? But hear this truth with unshakable conviction: God will give you back what was taken, not just replace it, restore it, not just return it, multiply it, not just mend what was broken, rebuild it stronger than it ever was before. What left your hands did not leave the sight of God. What slipped from your life did not slip away from God's control. You have never lived a day when God did not know exactly what you lost, exactly who harmed you, exactly what injustice crushed you, and exactly when He planned to give it all back. There are seasons when the enemy thinks he has succeeded, when people believe they have walked away with victory over your spirit, when circumstances seem to mock your prayers, when hardship whispers that your story is over. But God is the one who writes the final chapter. God is the one who determines what is permitted and what is restored. God is the one who steps into the very place where loss tried to bury you and declares, "Now I will show you what divine restoration looks like." You see, when God restores, He does not restore according to the measure of your pain. He restores according to the measure of His power. And His power has no limit. Some of you have lived years feeling as though something precious was stolen from you long ago. Your childhood, your innocence, your dreams, your joy, your peace of mind. But hear this today, with all the force of heaven behind it, God has not forgotten one tear, one betrayal, one injustice, one wound, one silent cry that no one else heard. God remembers every loss, but He also prepares every restoration. And when God restores, He restores at the appointed time, not too early, not too late, but at the moment when His glory will shine the brightest. You might feel empty now. You might feel like life has taken more than it ever gave. But God specializes in divine reversals. God waits until the valley seems too deep, the night too long, the desert too dry, so that when restoration breaks forth, there is no confusion about where it came from. God restores in a way that humbles every enemy and lifts you to a place where even you must say, "This was God's hand alone." You may have lost years, but God returns seasons. You may have lost relationships, but God returns purpose. You may have lost strength, but God returns power. You may have lost hope, but God returns vision. Nothing is beyond His reach. Nothing is beyond His ability. Nothing is beyond His plan. There is a divine law written into the fabric of existence itself. When God allows something to be taken from your life, it is because He intends to give back more than what was removed. You are not being emptied to die. You are being emptied to be refilled. You are not being stripped to be weakened. You are being stripped to be repositioned. Loss is not the end. Loss is preparation. The moment something leaves your life, God begins preparing what will replace it. The question is not whether God can restore you. The question is whether you will trust Him while He prepares the restoration. Some of you are in that place right now, the in-between, the waiting zone, the silent season where nothing seems to change, and the temptation is to believe that what was taken will never return. But God does not operate according to what you see. God operates according to the destiny He wrote for you before your first breath. You are not forgotten. You are not ignored. You are not abandoned. You are in the hands of the one who brings back what was lost and adds far more than what was taken, because God does not give back the same way people return things. Humans return with reluctance. God returns with abundance. Humans return just enough. God returns more than enough. Humans return when they feel generous. God returns because restoration is part of His very nature. When God returns something to you, it is not a transaction, it is a transformation. You will not simply receive what you lost. You will rise with a deeper strength, a clearer purpose, a sharper discernment, and a faith that cannot be shaken by anything that tried to break you. Every loss you endured was seen by God. Every sacrifice you made was recorded by God. Every season where you kept going, even though you felt empty, was honored by God. And now God is preparing to give back what was taken, not just in quantity, but in quality. You see, what you lost may have been good, but what God will return will be divine. What you lost may have been comfortable, but what God will return will be purposeful. What you lost may have been familiar, but what God will return will be extraordinary. There is a spiritual truth that few understand. The enemy can only take what God allows, and God only allows what He intends to transform. That means the very thing the enemy used to break you is the thing God will use to build you. The very loss that wounded you is the loss God will use to elevate you. The very pain that made you cry is the pain God will use to strengthen you. What was taken was not the end of your story. It was the preparation for the chapter where God restores everything. There comes a moment when a person must recognize that what was taken from them did not disappear into darkness. It was placed into the hands of God for transformation. You may think loss means absence, but in the realm of God, loss often means repositioning. Something may have left your life suddenly, painfully, without warning, but God does not operate in chaos. Even what appears stolen has been intercepted by God for a greater purpose. This is why you must not misinterpret your season. Sometimes God allows something to be removed because He intends to elevate you to a level where that old thing could not go. Some relationships were taken because the next season requires peace, not chaos. Some opportunities were taken because your destiny requires focus, not distraction. Some of your strength was taken because God wanted to rebuild you with a power that does not come from your own hands, but from His presence alone. When God restores, He does not begin with the outside. He begins with the inner structure of your spirit. Before anything comes back physically, God strengthens you spiritually. Before anything is returned in your hands, God expands your capacity to carry it, because God will never give back what will overwhelm you. God will never return something before you are prepared to manage it. Many people ask for restoration, but they do not realize that restoration begins with transformation. God is not only giving back what was taken, God is shaping you into someone who can walk boldly, wisely, confidently, and fearlessly with what is coming. Think about this. Sometimes what was taken had to be taken because you were holding on too tightly to something that was too small for the size of your calling. God sees the version of you that you have not yet met. God sees the path you have not yet walked. God sees the strength you have not yet discovered. And because of that, God may remove something you thought you needed, only to return it in a form you never imagined. You thought you needed acceptance, but God intends to return identity. You thought you needed comfort, but God intends to return purpose. You thought you needed certain people, but God intends to return destiny. Or what's taken is not gone. It is evolving in the hands of the Almighty. Many of you do not realize that the moment something was taken from you, something else began to awaken in you. Loss can create hunger. Pain can sharpen focus. Emptiness can increase spiritual sensitivity. God sometimes allows what you relied upon to be removed so that you will discover a reliance on Him that no loss can ever shake. Because God does not want you to simply recover. God wants you to rise. God wants you to stand with a strength that was born from the fire of adversity. God wants you to see that you survived what should have destroyed you, and therefore you are already living proof that divine restoration is on the way. There is a spiritual law that few understand. When you lose something in faith, the next version of it always returns with greater power, greater clarity, and greater purpose. Loss without God breaks people. Loss with God builds people. Loss without God creates fear. Loss with God produces wisdom. Loss without God causes bitterness. Loss with God births transformation. God is shaping you through every season where something was taken, not to punish you, but to prepare you, not to weaken you, but to refine you, not to leave you empty, but to make room for what is greater. The reason the restoration will be greater than the loss is because God never returns things in the same condition. God does not give back the way the world gives back. God returns with increase. God returns with intention. God returns with a divine signature that leaves no doubt that the blessing came from Him alone. This is why you must not despair when something is taken. Instead, you must tune your spirit to what God is building in the unseen. God is not only restoring what you lost, God is elevating your entire life to a higher plane of purpose. There is a moment in your spiritual journey when you realize that the things taken from you were never meant to define you. The real treasure was not what was removed. The real treasure is who you are becoming through the process. You are being shaped into someone who cannot be broken by circumstances, destroyed by people, or defeated by adversity. God is forging a version of you that carries wisdom beyond your years, discernment beyond your experience, and strength beyond your natural capacity. And once God completes this inner transformation, the restoration that follows will not just be a blessing, it will be a revelation. You will look back on what was taken and realize it was not loss, it was divine redirection. You will see that God allowed the removal because He was preparing an arrival. You will understand that the emptiness you felt was not abandonment, it was preparation for fullness. And when God begins returning what was taken, it will not enter your life quietly. Restoration from God comes with a force that shifts your environment, elevates your confidence, and silences every voice that doubted you. This is why you must remain steadfast in this season. You are closer to restoration than you think. You are nearer to divine reversal than your circumstances suggest. God has a time for everything, a time for planting, a time for pruning, a time for losing, and a time for restoring. Your time of restoration is approaching with the certainty of dawn. What left your life is on its way back, but in a form so magnificent that even you will be startled by the abundance of God's plan. There will come a moment in your journey when you begin to sense that what was taken from you is already moving in your direction again. Not because of chance, not because of human effort, but because God has breathed upon your life with divine intention. You will feel a stirring, a quiet shift, an inner awakening that tells you something is changing. This is not wishful thinking, it is spiritual alignment. It is the awareness that heaven has opened a door the world cannot close. When God signals restoration, your spirit feels it before your eyes see it. You suddenly find strength where there was exhaustion, clarity where there was confusion, peace where there was turmoil. That is how God begins His return, by restoring the inner world before transforming the outer one. Many people expect restoration to begin with visible results, but God begins with invisible renewal. He strengthens the mind that felt weary. He calms the heart that felt broken. He breathes courage into the soul that felt defeated. God knows that before He gives you back what was taken, He must prepare you to walk in the fullness of what is coming. You are not being ignored, you are being equipped. You are not being delayed, you are being refined. You are not being denied, you are being realigned with the destiny God has already written for you. And when God restores, He does not simply hand back what was taken. He elevates you to a place where the loss no longer holds power. The past becomes a reference, not a prison. The wound becomes a lesson, not a limitation. The betrayal becomes a pathway, not a barrier. You are no longer defined by what was taken. You are defined by the God who is returning it. And this shift is critical because restoration is not merely about recovering things. It is about reclaiming identity. God is returning your confidence, your dignity, your voice, your courage, your authority, your sense of worth. What was taken may have been tangible, but what God returns is transformational. Some of you think restoration means going back to what once was, but God never leads you backward. God leads you forward. You are not returning to an old season. You are stepping into a new one. You are not getting back the old version of what you lost. You are receiving the divine upgrade. That relationship that was taken, God will return peace, not chaos. That opportunity that was taken, God will return purpose, not confusion. That time you feel you wasted, God will return maturity, not regret. Restoration is not a return to the familiar. It is an elevation into the extraordinary. And you must understand this. God never wastes your pain. The tears you cried watered the soil of your destiny. The nights you spent praying were recorded in the unseen realm. The losses you carried silently became seeds for future power. Nothing you endured is meaningless. Nothing you suffered is forgotten. Nothing you lost is beyond restoration. God knows how to collect every fragment of your brokenness and transform it into a masterpiece of strength and faith. You may not see the purpose now, but when the restoration comes, you will understand why the loss had to happen. For there is a depth of intimacy with God that is forged only in seasons of loss. When everything is taken from you, when you have nothing left to hold on to, you finally realize that God is the one who sustains you, strengthens you, and carries you. In that moment of vulnerability, something shifts inside of you. You stop depending on what can be taken, and you start depending on the one who cannot be moved. God uses loss to detach you from illusions and attach you to truth. God uses emptiness to draw you deeper into His presence. God uses silence to sharpen your spiritual hearing. And when that transformation happens, restoration becomes inevitable, because God does not restore to reward you. God restores to reveal you. When restoration arrives, you will see a version of yourself you never knew existed. A version that walks with unshakable faith, because nothing in this world has the power to break what God has rebuilt. A version that carries wisdom, because you have seen firsthand how God lifts, guides, and protects. A version that knows how to stand firmly even when life tries to push you down. What was taken did not destroy you, it awakened you. What was taken did not reduce you, it refined you. What was taken did not end your story, it positioned you for a chapter filled with divine favor and unstoppable momentum. And as God prepares to return what was taken, He will also expose why it had to leave. Some things were removed to protect you from unseen dangers. Some people were taken out of your life to save you from future harm. Some opportunities closed so that a greater door could open in perfect timing. God does not permit loss without purpose. You may have cried over what left, but one day you will thank God it did, because the restoration that follows will show you that the loss was necessary for your elevation. This is why you cannot look at your life through the lens of what was taken. You must look at your life through the lens of what God is about to return. The loss is temporary. The restoration is permanent. The setback is momentary. The comeback is inevitable. The sorrow is passing. The joy will overflow. And when God returns what was taken, it will not come quietly. It will come with weight, with abundance, with divine authority, with spiritual force. Every area where you felt robbed will become a place where you testify to the power of God. Some of you have been walking with wounds that felt too deep to heal, carrying emptiness that felt too heavy to bear. But God is saying to your spirit even now, I am not finished with your story. I will give you back what was taken, not as a possibility, not as a distant hope, but as a divine certainty. God has already ordained the restoration. You are standing on the edge of a breakthrough that will redefine your life. You may not see it yet, but the unseen realm is already shifting. The blessing is already moving. The return is already unfolding. God is already working behind the scenes, arranging, aligning, preparing, and positioning everything that belongs to you. And when the day comes, and it will come, when God releases the restoration you have been waiting for, every battle will make sense, every tear will be worth it, every loss will be redeemed. You will stand in the fullness of what God has returned and realize that nothing was truly taken, everything was transformed. There is a point in your spiritual journey when you must look beyond the visible and trust that God is orchestrating something far greater in the unseen. What was taken from you did not vanish. It was repositioned by divine hands. God has a way of removing what you thought was essential only to reveal that it was limiting you. God has a way of allowing something to be taken, not because you were unworthy, but because He was preparing a version of you that could handle what is far greater. The world may see loss, but God sees construction. The world may call it a setback, but God calls it a foundation being laid for something extraordinary. When God is preparing to return what was taken, He often begins by shifting your perspective. The way you saw your past changes. The way you interpret your hurt transforms. What once felt like an ending begins to look like a turning point. You start to realize that the loss was not the conclusion, it was the catalyst. God never lets something be taken unless He intends to bring you into a higher realm of strength, clarity, and purpose. You start to see that everything you thought was breaking you was actually shaping you into someone capable of carrying greater responsibility and greater blessings. And understand this powerful truth. When God restores, He restores with justice. There is no restoration without divine justice. This does not mean vengeance on people. It means alignment with God's order. It means that what was unfair will be corrected by a God who sees everything. It means that every unfair season will be repaid with divine fairness. God never overlooks one moment where you were wronged, mistreated, denied, or overlooked. God has kept record not to burden you, but to restore you. When the return comes, it will be with a justice that silences every injustice that ever touched your life. You may not see the full picture of why certain things were taken, but God does. God sees the future you cannot yet access. God sees the dangers you did not recognize. God sees the road beyond the bend where you have not yet walked. Sometimes God allows something to be taken because keeping it would have destroyed you. Sometimes God allows someone to walk away because their presence was delaying your destiny. Sometimes God allows your plans to fall apart because He was protecting you from building your life in a place that could not sustain your calling. The challenge is that during the season of loss, you often do not see the protection, only the pain. For what feels like defeat is often divine direction. God will let what is temporary be taken so He can give you what is eternal. God will let what is fragile be removed so He can give you what is unbreakable. God will let what was flawed disappear so He can give you what is refined. This is not random, this is precision. God never subtracts without planning a multiplication. Do not underestimate the importance of what God has been doing inside of you during this season. You have been growing even when it felt like you were collapsing. You have been strengthening even when you felt broken. You have been rising even when you felt buried. God has been stretching your spiritual capacity, deepening your resilience, and sharpening your discernment. You are not the same person who experienced that loss. You are wiser, more aware, more grounded, and more aligned with God's purpose. And because of that transformation, the restoration that is coming will not crush you. It will crown you. You must realize that divine restoration is not only about getting back what you lost, it is about stepping into a new season where what was taken becomes irrelevant. You will no longer mourn what left, because what returns will overshadow every past sorrow. God never returns blessings with regret. He returns blessings with glory. You will not say, I miss what I lost. You will say, thank God it left, because what came after was far greater. The pain will no longer define you. The betrayal will no longer haunt you. The disappointment will no longer control you. You will stand in a new dimension of strength, fully aware that God used every loss to elevate your life to a higher place. And as this restoration unfolds, God will also remove the residue of what was taken. God will heal the wounds you carried, even the ones you hid. God will clear the emotional shadows that lingered long after the loss occurred. God will free you from the fear of losing again. Restoration is not only the return of what was taken, it is the renewal of who you are. God does not want you to carry the spirit of loss into your new season. God wants you to carry the spirit of victory, confidence, and trust. The restoration is not complete until your inner world matches the blessing God is releasing around you. Because when God gives you back what was taken, it will not return in the same condition. God does not give back broken pieces. God does not return damaged goods. God does not restore by recycling the old. He gives you something greater, stronger, more aligned, more powerful, more suited for your destiny. What returns will be something the old version of you could not have handled. That is why you endured the wilderness. That is why you endured the stripping. That is why you endured the emptiness. God was preparing you for the blessing you are about to receive. And hear this with unwavering certainty. Restoration is the signature of God's faithfulness. If God allowed it to be taken, then God has already ordained the day it will return. You are not waiting for restoration. Restoration is waiting for the appointed moment to meet you. The unseen realm has already shifted. Your name is already attached to the blessing. The future has already been written with your restoration in mind. God is moving pieces, aligning circumstances, opening doors, closing harmful pathways, and preparing hearts. All so that what belongs to you will come back in perfect timing. In the moment of divine return, you will not only receive what was taken, you will receive understanding. You will see the wisdom in the timing, the purpose in the loss, the protection in the removal, the strength in the waiting. You will look back and say, if I had not lost that, I would not have discovered this. You will say, if that had not been taken, I would never have been ready for what God is giving me now. You will say, what I thought was loss was actually preparation. There is a spiritual truth that cannot be overstated. God's restoration is never ordinary. Whatever was taken from you may have seemed significant at the time, but what God is preparing to return will far exceed human expectations. It will not simply replace what was lost. It will elevate you to a level of blessing, influence, and authority you never imagined. When God returns, it is not merely restitution, it is revelation. The restoration will reveal not only what belongs to you, but also who you are in God's plan, the depth of God's care, and the power of unwavering faith. Some of you have endured seasons where people doubted you. Opportunities slipped through your hands, and life seemed determined to keep you from your purpose. Yet in those very seasons, God was at work behind the scenes, arranging the pieces, closing doors that would have distracted you, opening doors that would align perfectly with your destiny, and preparing a restoration so complete it will silence every voice that once told you that your life was over. God's restoration does not announce itself quietly. It arrives with unmistakable authority. It is a divine statement that declares, what was taken is returned, and it comes multiplied, refined, and victorious. Understand this clearly. Loss is temporary, but God's favor is eternal. The temporary nature of loss is designed to teach you reliance, patience, and faith. God allows seasons of taking to sharpen your spiritual sensitivity, to cultivate humility, and to expand your capacity to receive the greater blessings that await. Those who give up, despair, or compromise in the waiting period often miss the fullness of what God intends. But those who remain steadfast, who refuse to let loss define them, who anchor their hearts in God alone, these are the ones who will experience restoration in its fullest glory. And the timing of God's return is always perfect. Restoration never comes too late, never too early, never under conditions that would be harmful. God's timing is precise, calibrated to ensure that the moment of return carries maximum impact. What you lost at one moment may have felt devastating, but in the wisdom of God, that timing created space for your spirit to grow, for your vision to expand, for your faith to solidify. Nothing in your life happens by accident. Every loss, every tear, every challenge was placed within a divine framework designed to prepare you for the restoration you are about to receive. Some of you are waiting for relationships, opportunities, health, financial provision, or peace to return to your life. But understand this, God's restoration is comprehensive. It is not limited to one area. It touches every part of your life that was affected by what was taken. It restores joy where sorrow once dwelled. It restores confidence where doubt had taken root. It restores purpose where direction was lost. It restores connection where isolation prevailed. And in the process, God transforms the very essence of your life, so that when the restoration comes, it is unmistakably a work of divine power, not human effort. And here is another truth you must carry deeply in your spirit. The restoration you are about to receive will be accompanied by insight and discernment. You will no longer be vulnerable to the same mistakes that caused the loss in the first place. God equips those He restores. He does not return without preparing you to steward what comes back. You will enter the restoration fully aware, fully alert, and fully empowered to protect, grow, and multiply what God has placed back in your hands. The return will not just recover what was lost, it will elevate your capacity to receive, expand, and exercise authority over your blessings. Do not allow temporary absence to cloud your vision of God's promise. The enemy wants you to focus on what is gone, to question God's timing, to forget the power of faith, and to doubt the certainty of restoration. But God's word, His wisdom, and His perfect plan declare otherwise. Every tear is recorded. Every injustice is remembered. Every moment of silent endurance is honored. And every bit of what was lost is being prepared for a return that will glorify God and testify to the unshakable faith of your spirit. Some of you may feel fear. Fear that the loss is permanent. Fear that you are too broken. Fear that what was taken cannot be returned. But God is saying to you now, do not fear, for I am the God of restoration. What was stolen from you, what slipped from your grasp, what life seemed to take unfairly, none of it is beyond my reach. I am not constrained by human limitations. I am not delayed by circumstances. I am not bound by what others do or fail to do. I am God. I see all. I know all. I restore all. And what I restore is more powerful than what was lost, more perfect than what was taken, and more enduring than anything this world can touch. And so you must stand strong. You must cultivate patience, perseverance, and faith in the unseen. You must walk with confidence even in the void, trusting that God is aligning everything for your return. Your job is not to question, doubt, or rush the timing. It is to remain faithful, vigilant, and obedient in the current season. Because when God returns what was taken, it will not just be returned, it will arrive as a declaration of God's power, God's justice, and God's unwavering commitment to you. God is moving in ways your eyes cannot yet see. God is preparing doors that cannot be forced open. God is orchestrating blessings that cannot be fabricated. God is bringing back what was lost, and in the process, God is revealing to you the depth of His faithfulness, the magnitude of His power, and the glory of His plan. Trust the process, trust the timing, trust the one who holds your past, your present, and your future. Restoration is coming, and when it comes, you will know it is God, not by chance, not by circumstance, but by the unmistakable fingerprint of divine intervention. So now, hear this with every fiber of your being. What was taken from you is not lost forever. The season of emptiness, the moments of pain, the struggles that seemed unending, all of it has been witnessed, measured, and held in the hands of God. Nothing has escaped His sight, nothing has slipped beyond His control, and nothing has been forgotten. God is orchestrating your restoration with precision, purpose, and power. What you mourned, what you questioned, what you feared was gone. God is preparing to return it, and it will come in a way that surpasses your imagination, exceeds your expectations, and transforms your life entirely. You must not look back in regret or forward in fear. You must remain steadfast in faith, unwavering in hope, and bold in trust. The waiting season is not punishment. It is preparation. The silence is not abandonment, it is alignment. The struggle is not rejection, it is refinement. Every trial has been the forge for your spirit, shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying the abundance God is about to pour into your life. When restoration comes, it will arrive with authority, clarity, and confirmation. Every doubt will be silenced. Every tear will be redeemed. Every loss will be outweighed by the magnitude of God's provision. And in that moment, you will recognize the divine hand that orchestrated everything. The hand that removed, the hand that strengthened, the hand that waited patiently, the hand that returns with blessings beyond measure. So stand now with courage. Hold fast to the truth that God will give back what was taken. Walk boldly through this season, knowing that nothing has the power to defeat the one who is under the care of Almighty God. Every injustice will be corrected, every gap will be filled, every emptiness will be overflowed. God is faithful, God is just, God is powerful, and God is already moving to restore, multiply, and elevate every part of your life. Believe it. Receive it, declare it. The return is coming, and when it comes, it will testify to the greatness of God, the resilience of your spirit, and the unstoppable reality that no loss can overcome the divine power that watches over you. What was taken will return, not just restored, but gloriously, abundantly, and forever aligned with the destiny God ordained for you from the very beginning.